In today's lesson, we're building up on what we started last week by looking at inverse operations and algebra. Today, we're really jumping into what we call algebraic expressions. So we're really focusing on our letters. Okay, we're looking at flowcharts again today. And one of the concepts we're really looking at is what happens when we're dividing and multiplying first, or if we're adding or subtracting first. So let's take this first flowchart here, m times 3. Well, like we talked about last week, the shorthand of that is 3m. You don't have to write times. Then plus 5, I've drawn my boxes too small, you get the idea. It would be 3m plus 5. Now the big distinction in today's lesson is what happens when we add first. Well, that would become m plus 5. Now when we go to times by 3, when we're multiplying by 3, we're saying we have 3 groups of m plus 5. And we'll jump back to that in a second and why this makes sense. But we need to multiply the 3 by the m and the 5. And how we represent that in our working out can get really messy. So what we do is I'll do it outside the box because it's too small. We bring the 3 out the front and then we insert brackets like that. And what those brackets mean is anything out the front of those brackets, okay, needs to be multiplied into the two values, okay? So if we were to extend that and solve that further, it would actually end up being 3m plus 15, okay? So when we already have our algebraic expression and a positive or negative number here, so plus 5, and then we have to multiply or divide, we have to do it to both values. Okay, and why that's important is, let's say, because we can then solve this, can't we? We can go a step further and bring the m over to this side. So it would be m equals 15 over 3. Which would then be 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, which would be 5. That equals 5. Sorry, it's a bit squishy now. So you can see it can get quite tricky. All we're focusing on is this skill here, putting it in brackets. Okay, so that's for multiplication. Maybe forget this for now. That's really going that extra step. But that's for multiplication. For division, we actually use our fraction or vernicilium, as we say. So here we have x divided by 4, so we will turn that into a fraction. So x over 4, because when we get to this stage of mathematics, our fraction is the same as division. And then take away 5. So x over 4 take away 5. That kind of makes sense because we're just following the order. But again, things get tricky when we have a negative or positive number before we have to divide. So that would just become x take away 5, and now we're dividing. So what we do is we still incorporate that same fraction function, but x take away 5 goes on the top and 4 goes on the bottom like that. So much like the brackets here, what it's saying is 4 needs to go into the x and the 5 to be solved, essentially. I did kind of take a couple steps extra here. You can forget about that just for today's lesson. We're really focusing on this skill of, when we're multiplying, bring in the brackets, and then when we're dividing, bringing in the fraction, the vernicilium, but putting all the values on the top. Let's take this question here as just another quick example. X plus 10 becomes x plus 10 divided by 3. We throw that on top and put the 3 down there. Let's say that was times by 3. Okay, we would throw the 3 out the front, brackets x plus 10, like that. And that's part of what your question, that's an example of one of the questions in your work today. So it does build up quite slowly in the questions. First, it's just the easy example of the flowchart. Then it jumps over to this style here where we're adding and subtracting first and then multiplying. The only rule you need to remember is that when we're multiplying multiple values, we put what we're multiplying by out the front and then all our values in the brackets. Likewise, when we're dividing, we put all of the values on top, and our denominator is what we're dividing by. They're the two main rules that you need to follow. And if you do, I think you'll find much success in today's lesson. The question 4 and 5 get a little bit trickier. Have a go at them. It's kind of getting you to go backwards. So for example, it says 5x plus 9, and it wants you to then draw the flowchart, what the flowchart would be. So obviously we put our x first, and because there's no brackets here, okay, I can safely say that it was the times first and then plus 9. So the answer is the brackets. So in your Google Slides, these are the values that you would write. But then it goes on to be a bit trickier, and because this is where our inverse operations and backtracking from last lesson, we're given the answer, now we have to go backwards. So here, because we do have brackets, we know that we had our addition first and then our multiplication second, because we're timing 2 to both values. So that's question 4. Have a go at it. I know I've done a lot of work here and it does look a little bit tricky, but I think once you look at the explanation and the examples and then see the work you have to do, it will make sense. Like I said, this skill here, that's really what we're focusing on today, and that understanding of once we have more than one value, so n plus 5, and then we have to multiply or divide, okay, we have to either throw it into brackets or put all the values on top. Come to today's Zoom and or just post some questions in the Google Classroom. Good luck.